On today's show, we have a mashup involving a 1909 classic and a school spirit with 1909's release of the Williamson and 40 Minutes of Hell era Arkansas Razorbacks Apparel. Join us as we look back at a legendary game involving Williamson and the Backs and talk about some of the history, present, and future of Arkansas basketball. Now, on to the show. Welcome to the 1909 podcast, the best and maybe only retro college basketball podcast. I'm Aaron Meyer. My co-host is Josh Barnett, one of the owners of 1909, and I want to welcome you, the listeners, all those Todd Day heads out there, the big nasty Day One fans out
Big
there.
Big O,
yep.
Oliver Miller,
yep, Big O,
Lee
Oliver
Mayberry,
Miller, yep.
Nolan Richardson. 40 minutes of hell.
Yes,
Golly,
yes.
We're into it.
Perfect.
We're in sync already.
That segue. I'm gonna kick it to you, Josh, to just set us up with the gear drop today. Set the scene for this classic Arkansas victory, the top of the mountain right here that we're gonna talk about a little bit.
Yeah, so this one's been a long time coming for us. We've had Arkansas in our sights since day one, and it took a while to get them here, but they are here now, and it is very, very awesome to have them a part of the 99 stable and our second SEC school. More SEC schools to come very soon.
Yes.
But yeah, Arkansas was a big get for us, just because of the history and the passion of their fan base. And some of that tradition and obviously culminated in the 94 national championship, and then they go back in 95. They were also there in 90, so we had to give them some love. And I believe, I'm going to get the year wrong, but I think they were there in 78, and those are some crazy good shorts too.
Interesting. Now, I didn't go that far back, but definitely watched the 40 Minutes of Hell doc, watched the game, and just this era is such a distinct era of college basketball, and they are a great representation of just the styles, not just the styles of play, but the styles of players, the coach, being the center of the eye of the hurricane. And
how good is Nolan Richardson?
Cool. Absolute legend. We were talking before we got on the air just about the pathway that he took to being an all-time coach. Starting out in high school, 13 years, grinding it out, coaching in high school, and teaching at the same time. He just had that passion for basketball, and you could just tell, like, he just loved it. And even though things didn't end at Arkansas, maybe the way that they should have, or the way that he wanted, I saw him at one of the anniversaries come back and say, you know what, I never left Arkansas, though. I mean, that guy just loved his time there, and he meant so much to the school and to the guys that came through that program.
So a couple things. Number one, it never ends well at schools for legends. Yeah. Hardly ever. And we were talking off mic because you were able to come down here and join us for a day. So we got to talk a lot, which was dope. We talked about how you get some not knee jerk reactions, but the grass is always greener on the other side with some of those legends.
Right.
After they have some losing seasons, you saw it with Coach Knight, you saw it with Coach Richardson. Or maybe that success isn't sustained, but they're the ones that created that success.
Yeah.
And so it's always wild. And then it's just like impossible to replace legends,
They're fighting against themselves is what makes it so difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, now I'm fighting against my own legend.
Yeah, great point. But then with the other part, and getting off of that, because that's not going to be the focus by any means, but the other point that you were making was, as we do this research and we do these podcasts and we start to like dig into the coaches and stuff, back in the day, 70s, 80s, 90s, a lot of these guys came from the high school ranks.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't seem to happen anymore.
I can't imagine it happening, honestly.
Right.
What circumstances would come up?
But where is a better spot to cut your teeth than high school? You know what you deal with kids on a daily basis and trying to manage that, and then the parents and all that stuff. Like almost college would be less pressure than some of the high schools because you're not. You know what I mean?
Well, you just have all the resources too. That's the one thing you have none of at high school.
Right, exactly.
Resources.
So we were talking just a little bit about that off Mike.
Tell me a little bit about, let's get back to the design real quick. I want to hit that. So tell me a little bit about the design, because this team of, you think of like the legends of just like team design and trends. This is kind of the apex of like length of shorts.
Yeah.
I mean, the design is cool, but they were also notable for, and I remember it's so weird thinking about this, that it was like slightly controversial at the time. Like I have no idea why. I'm sure there was a context for it, but as a kid at this time, don't remember why they were controversial, but I remember like just, maybe it's a racial thing, just like the length of the shorts becoming a thing. But I loved wearing long shorts. Like long shorts were the thing.
That was Fab Five. You didn't thank them for that. But I remember the baggiest,
were super long.
The baggiest short game in the history of baggy short games was this Arkansas 94 team against the remnants of the Fab Five. Yeah. And I remember that too. Like I think even Sports Center called it the battle of the baggy shorts.
Nice.
And they were just like asinine how long they were. But we keep getting comments, which are great, on social media today, asking like, are these in standard like Scotty Thurman link, or are they regular ones? And so and one guy put Chris put that the inseam should be 40 minutes from hell or something like that, just because it was so long, whatever. That was pretty clever.
That's great.
Shout out to Chris.
So I love that, and I love that the colors and logo on these are incredible. I mean,
what great logos does Arkansas have, though?
Man,
my God, slobbering hog and the hog coming through the A, and just a ton of
something about
stuff,
saying like Razorbacks. I know that, but saying hogs is just kind of fun too.
It's interesting. So I was watching. I went back and watched Hog Wild, their national championship run video, which I have the VHS right over here to the side, but I was watching that, and it looked like, and it might have been an ode to a past team, but their opening game that year, because they just moved from Barnhill Arena to Bud Walton. Mm-hmm. So this was like the first year at Bud Walton, I believe. And in the first game, their shorts just say hogs on them. Like it's not the shorts that we did, and not the shorts that they're remembered for. So I need to look into that a little bit.
Because I feel like that goes with it. And I wanted to ask you, so what's the deal with nicknames? Because I feel, have we gotten just terrible at nicknames? Because the Big Nasty,
or they all got taken?
I guess, but there has to be more. There has to be more, because I love when we're talking about some of the Baltimore guys, like they have the best nicknames there. This guy, Honey Dip. I mean, how is that? That's an amazing nickname. I want a shirt that says Honey Dip on it.
You and I are both reading the John Thompson book right now.
Yes, there's a bunch of there.
And in several instances, John Thompson's like, I have no idea what this real dude's name is, but Honeysuckle from 34th Street, used to kill people on the playgrounds or something.
What's Elgin Baylor, the rabbit?
The rabbit.
Like, oh my God.
I never knew that.
I know, but
I never knew that.
I feel like there's a corner for somebody out there to really start working. I know every like really great player has to be their own brand, so they want to keep maybe their name tied to it. But I mean, the Big Nasty.
But here's the other thing, though.
Fun.
Part of those is part of that. Did Corliss Williamson? And I don't know. An Arkansas fan that's listening is going to have to tell us. Did Corliss Williamson come to Arkansas? I find it hard to believe he came to Arkansas as the Big Nasty.
Yeah.
But he got that rep as what he played. These dudes don't stay in school anymore.
That's true.
So there's not enough years in there for the fan base to get a hold of them and nickname them. And
but they don't do it in the NBA though either anymore. It's like just KD or
you earn. I feel like a lot of those nicknames though were earned in high school. In college, and so then they just carried it on. I mean, I don't know, man.
I don't know when Air Jordan came, but
that was later.
Yeah, see,
yeah, that was later. So. I mean, I'm sure there's instances both ways.
I just can't let that go. I feel like we need to lead the revolution of nicknames coming back, because they're just so much fun. Like that fits him, and he fit that team so much. So we watched the 40 Minutes of Hell documentary too, and they're talking about this story in there is so great. So it's Larry Johnson, that 91 team comes to Arkansas, and they play them at home, and they just blow them out. And at one point, Larry Johnson goes over to the bench to Coach Richardson and says, "You got to get some men in here." Yeah, just like, wow. I mean, the stones on Johnson going over to say that, but then Richardson comes in on the documentary and says, "I got to go get somebody." He went and got Corliss Williamson. Great. That was at 15 years old. He signed with them, so he knew from the start that he wanted to go to Arkansas. He's from Arkansas, probably the greatest player in Arkansas history. What a legacy! That dude is just a straight legend.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep,
great story. It felt right to have the 40 Minutes of Hell documentary on down here while we were selling shit and packing orders.
No doubt. I love Coach Richardson's suits too. That's a part of his like personal style. Yeah. I know, and that's a thing too. We're talking about coaches. Like, it might not be quote unquote stylish, but because it's like his own thing. It just is him, you know. It embodies like who he is and just like his personal style. There's something I enjoy about.
I always respect those coaches. Kind of going back on that high school thing. I always respect those coaches that could win at every level.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like that dude came from high school ranks where he was a winner or he wouldn't have progressed up. Then goes to Tulsa, wins at Tulsa, and you know, as they just work like each stop, each.
You skipped over junior college. He's the only coach in history to have a junior college national championship, NIT championship, and an NCAA championship.
Like them dudes, some of them dudes can just coach.
Yeah,
Coach Richardson could just coach
and had that style. He brought that mentality and that style.
But every great coach has its style, right? And then you recruit to that style, like that type of athlete and type of basketball player he was recruiting would not be the type of player that Coach Knight was recruiting at Indiana because it didn't fit his system, and vice versa, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was always interesting growing up knowing that different teams with different coaches had just a completely different style. I feel like so many teams just play the same game now, where it used to be like Nolan Richardson, 40 Minutes of Hell, Bob Knight, motion offense, man-to-man defense, you know, Patino, wild up and down threes, press, you know, like everybody had that like distinct style. And that's what made college basketball so good.
It's the analytics though, right? Because I even hear people talking about it where you're the defense, the way you're set up, you play the area, not the person anymore. I mean, you're basically gambling because you know where they want to go before they even go there. Because
you know, I hate analytics.
I know.
I hate analytics. God, I hate it so much.
I haven't been able to tell.
I don't dismiss the merit.
No, I mean it's clearly works.
I don't.
Yeah.
But I'm a gut feel guy on everything.
So I did hear this the other day, and I think there's a truth to this, that people don't do enough to argue the merits of the way basketball was played at this time. So many times you just bend to the curve of history where it's just like, hey, this is just how it's played. This is better. Like they hit more shots. I'm like, yeah, they do. But you need to understand that the reason that these guys didn't hit more threes is because they were working to get a layup. And it just that was the part of the game. You know, Allen Iverson, you can say his true shooting percentage wasn't as good, but the reason he didn't is because the shot that he was working to get is more difficult than just jacking up threes. I mean, it's an easier shot, but that wasn't the way the game was played. And I think that needs to be said. Like it's just not part of the game. Like you can't just say he didn't do it.
Guys that drive in
the game
are trying to score a layup in that era. Guys that drive in now, watch that Portland 76ers game last night, and Ben Simmons would just drive in and have a layup, and then he would just throw it out to a shooter to get a three out. It's just a different thing. But back to the Arkansas team. That Arkansas team would have been an absolute nightmare to play against. I would have hated it. I would have hated my life. I would have been tired. I would have gotten my pocket picked 37 times before I ever got to half court, and that would have been a nightmare.
Murdered.
Yeah.
Hey, before we go, so I want to talk a little bit, get deeper into the game, but talk a little bit about how you picked the other team with Todd Day, Oliver Miller, all those guys, because that team is really good too. Really That's kind of his first go at it.
So they were still in the WSC. I think that was their last year in the Southwest Conference before they joined the SEC. So then when they win in '94, they're in the SEC by then. And that's Barnhill Arena, and it's Todd Day, Lee Mayberry, Oliver Miller, who were all sophomores on that team. So that team came back loaded too that next year. But
Todd Day could shoot.
Yeah, Todd Day. I remember getting Todd Day cards, the classic cards and stuff, and being fired up about that. And then he went to the Bucks, I believe.
Yeah.
But those shorts are so good. Like the A with the hog coming through them are so good.
So good.
And they're such just a clean, classic. Shout out to Arkansas's Twitter account for retweeting us too, and I'll steal the classic line for them. But the classics are the shorts. The shorts are classics. Like they're just that clean, classic cut of '90s era shorts where you had trim on the bottom, trim on the waistband, and then you had two logos on the sides going up your hips, but then their logos make it, and their colors are great too. So we had to honor that team. We had to honor Nolan Richardson. That's what this whole thing was about. And obviously the University of Arkansas as well. And we had to get the 90 team rep, and we had to get the 94 team rep, and we'll come back and get the 95 team at some point, and we'll get that 77 or 78 team too. Yeah,
they didn't talk about it much in the documentary, but watching these two teams, it's weird that they had big men that could shoot. Like that's a
big Dwight Stewart.
Yeah, he took several threes with little hesitation.
Yep, that was his game.
Oliver Miller too. Like Oliver Miller had a
those guys with fire. That was Pitino had that thing going too, and he was having success with it at Kentucky. And when that's in conference too, you start to kind of adapt and let your guys fire threes too. Because if you're going to play with Kentucky, you're going to have to shoot with them too. And so it's always fun for me to watch like interconference foes kind of try to figure each other out. Like, okay, that Nolan Richardson was trying to figure out how to keep up with Kentucky too, but then on his side, he had Dillard, and he had Scotty Thurman, he had Stewart, he had all
McDaniel.
Those. Yeah, he had McDaniel. Yeah. He had all those dudes that could bomb, and they shot deep threes in some of those games too. And I think it was Nolan Richardson said that. I think it was Clint McDaniel's range like started as soon as he got to the gym. For sure. That type of stuff. Yeah. So that's always like just fun to reminisce on and watch. But yeah, that was probably the beginning of what we're seeing today, especially Pitino's, because Pitino really came out and said, the worst shot in basketball is when you take a shot and your foot's on the 3-point line, and I'll pull you from the game if you do it. And, Coach Richardson had his own style defensively and stuff too. But people were starting to open up that 3-point game a little bit more back then too, it's kind of interesting now reflecting back.
Pitino's ability to self-promote maybe a little bit more than Coach Richardson, because I think their styles were more alike than I even realized at the time. Like I think that he doesn't get enough credit for bringing that style to the forefront. But I got a couple of clips. So the guy on the court, let's talk a little bit about the game, because the guy on the court that he said was most important and was his coach on the floor was Beck. This is a little bit
Corey Beck.
Yeah, a little Corey Beck right here.
We'll send Beck to the line for a couple. About the 9 offensive boards that Arkansas got in the first half. In the second half, it has been one and done for Duke on their end of the floor. Antonio Lang in there. He heard at the press conferences yesterday how 5 of the Razorbacks, including Corey Beck, have pet snakes. Beck has a 9-foot python named Truth that lives in his dorm room. I like that story where the snake sleeps with Stewart. How would you like to have a roommate that lets the snake out of the cage and crawls on you? Well, if anybody needed an exclamation point on what Nolan Richardson said the other day about Corey Beck is putting it on for himself. He has been the man of the hour.
Loved Corey Beck in this game.
So I've said it on this podcast before. Corey Beck is like the often forgot biggest piece of that entire run. That guy is the dude that like would make you quit if you ran into him in a rec league 100%. Or something. You'd be like, you know what? Fuck this. This ain't worth it.
He is 40 minutes. Like he was just relentless. That so entire good. Game. He wanted to win that game. So
very
bad.
Competitive. So good. Not a great shooter, but he like of those, whatever they said, 9 offensive rebounds in the first half. I bet Beck had 3 of them as the point guard.
He went into the post, which is something a lot of times guards, especially point guards, hate when the other point guard's going to go just post you up in the game. And he would. He just go down there, throw some bows. He would mix it up with anybody.
Yeah, I love Corey Beck, man. He's one of my all-time favorite point guards and oft forgotten, I feel like, in college basketball circles, which is not fair.
Did you catch at the beginning that this was the fourth straight Final Four that Ted Valentine? Is it just me as an IU fan that thinks that Ted Valentine is not a good ref?
Because that's Coach Knight getting to you.
I know, 4 straight Final Fours. Yeah, I was like, man, I think maybe I'm wrong about this guy because he was in there.
I always love those clips. I love Billy Packer, and I love a younger Jim Nance too.
I know.
Those guys just kind of vibed off each other real well. And Packer was always really knowledgeable, man. He's so knowledgeable. I felt knowledgeable. Like, yeah.
Well, good. I got another one. This is Corliss Williamson. We're gonna listen to.
Big nasty.
Just wait for the and one yell. This is like Carlos Boozer level and one yell.
I love these.
Backing in, Williamson tipped it in the second time.
Corliss so quick on the second leap for a man taking that much up in the air. Much as Charles Barkley does. He doesn't like to think of himself as Barkley. He likes to think of himself of Larry Johnson.
Meek now trying to defend Williamson. Boy, once Williamson gets it right there on the block with your defender behind it, it's over.
Well, Eric Meek took up boxing in the offseason to improve his footwork. And he's up against a heavyweight now that I don't think is going to be knocked out.
Arkansas Stewart. Partially blocked by Hill, but Williamson in one.
Too strong. From a man that was the greatest high school player in Arkansas history, closing in to, you could say, the greatest college player, distancing the great Sidney Moncrief, the way this guy's going.
So I love that little stat, too, that he was actually on pace to break Bill Walton's all-time record for field goal percentage till this game. He starts off this game not so well, but finishes really strong. And he just, again, embodies that style. He's absolutely relentless throughout the game, and just I love the shaved head. The whole look is just.
He doesn't look big. He doesn't look big out there.
Style, but I personally love. He
doesn't look big out there either.
He doesn't.
He doesn't look big. He looks strong.
He is, yeah.
But he doesn't look like tall, and he's in there getting basically any shot he wants.
He's very. He's very Larry Johnson-like.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird to hear him not want to be compared to Charles Barkley, but want to be compared to Larry Johnson. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Corliss Williamson on the Kings was great. I loved watching him on the Kings with that up and coming team with C-Webb and all those guys. Like, that was fun as shit.
We talked. I feel like I somehow thought he didn't have a good pro career.
No, it was good, solid. Yeah,
I think on one of the redrafts we did this summer, and
that's right. I do remember that.
I was like, wait a second, and then I was like, he played for 12, 13 years.
Yeah,
so I don't know why that was my mistake, but he was a good pro and awesome.
On the flip side of that national championship game, I'm like, I love Grant Hill so much.
Yeah.
But if you think about Grant Hill and that team that he carried to the national championship game, and was a Scotty Thurman 3 away from winning it.
3 out of 4 too. That would have been for him.
When he leaves, because he's a senior, goes to the Pistons, and then that team that next year wins like 5 games.
Yeah.
And that's when Coach K gets that hip replacement and all that stuff. Like, and then you start looking at now Antonio Lang was a nice piece, good player, all that stuff. Cherokee Parks was good, but Cherokee Parks was on the next year's team too.
Right.
Like, I started looking at that team, and I'm like, how the fuck did Grant Hill get this team to national championship?
I was confused why they didn't go the year before too. I'm like, what happened the year before? They lost to that Jason Kidd.
Kidd, man.
I had to investigate that. I was like, why didn't they go that year?
That was Bobby Hurley's last year.
What about those? What about the shoes in this game? You like either the shoes? They're the Converse.
Yeah, they were wearing Cons. Wasn't a huge fan of those.
The React juice in there.
Yeah, but so I did have some React juice in middle school. I had the original Cons that were all black. I loved them, all black, and they just had Cons in white. That's what we used our basketball shoes.
Yeah.
And then I would just sit there and like hit it with a pencil in gym class. I remember this clear as day, and I would like just squeeze the shit out of that gel stuff.
Still a stain on the court
for
somewhere.
A kid that's like 11, 12, 13 years old, having like he knows that he can pop that and squeeze the gel. There was no chance that gel was staying in there. Zero.
Unbelievable. What about the Air Unlimited that Grant Hill's got on? You fan?
Yeah, I almost bought those a couple times. I actually saw them in a Nike outlet years ago, probably 10 years ago, and almost bought them because of Grant Hill.
They're pretty cool. I like that colorway he's got on.
Yeah, but like then I started looking at the shoes, years, and then I looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm like, can I make them look as good as Grant Hill? And the answer to that was no.
Yeah, they're super
so I
high.
passed.
They're super high tops. So the 6'8" legs are
there's something different about Grant Hill wearing something or any athlete, and then like 40-year-old me wearing them. You know what I mean?
Grant Hill could probably pull anything off.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. All right, well, the 19-9 moment of this game is pretty easy. Going to involve Scotty Thurman here.
Here we go.
But he's got a few in this game. He was unbelievable in this game. But let's listen in on this moment.
Tough pass, got away from Biley. Thurman, good shooter. Arkansas on the board with a 2.
Boy, he is so solid.
Thurman, 3.
Smooth stroke of Scotty Thurman.
All SEC in both basketball and all SEC academic. Scotty Thurman puts Arkansas in front 34-33.
Jimmy's played 65 games in his career, and only 5 times has he failed to hit a 3.
1 on the shot clock. Thurman beat it. Oh! He got it! 3-pointer!
Huge arch on that. He had to do it to get it over Lang's hands.
What I love about that is that in recollecting that in the 40 Minutes of Hell documentary, he talks about in the playground or playing in his driveway and how his dad used to tell him he'd have to adjust his shot sometimes. And so he's like, I didn't even know. I knew it was going in as soon as I put it up. Love that little detail, because definitely I've shot a million shots where put a little extra arc on it, or just it's not a game shot, but it ends up at some point locking in your brain and you can just shoot that shot.
We talked about Dwight Stewart earlier. He's the assist guy on the play.
Unintentionally.
And Scotty Thurman says if Dwight doesn't bobble that ball, he's shooting it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he's like, he makes an unselfish play, but if he catches that clean, that shot's going up. And then he follows up with, and he would have made it too. You know?
I like it. Yeah. I like it. Good teammate. Scotty Thurman, they say in there too, smooth stroke. So I love watching him shoot. He's one of those guys that I could just watch shoot. He just has a nice looking jump shot. Weird that he didn't have a better NBA career, but
didn't get drafted. Came out after the game, right?
Maybe just the athleticism, or just
was it the next year? Was it the next year?
I think next year.
Yeah, next year.
But
fun, it's
awesome
always
college player.
Yeah, it's always weird. Is that NBA is the different cat,
and those guys are, you can tell too, a lot of them passionate basketball guys, because they've stayed in the area. I don't know where they're at now, but the documentary, they were still in Fayetteville coaching and involved. So those guys are just good dudes. And you heard all academic too. I mean, that's just the
shit that you didn't hear though.
I know, but some of those special teams, you find out about that after the fact. Like, these guys aren't just great players.
We've talked.
They're great guys.
We've talked about it with the Fab Five too. Like, we didn't know those dudes were intelligent and smart and all that stuff,
they
because
don't get portrayed that
everybody harped on their baggy shorts and the style of play and yelling and one and screaming in each other's face. Like, I loved all that shit.
I hope that
UNLV too. UNLV had studs that is smart dudes, and Greg Anthony's the leader of the Republican Party on campus, and all that shit. Like,
exactly.
You just never heard that stuff. I mean, we know why, but
you get locked into a narrative and like a group think, and I think that's what gets hard to break through. Maybe people don't want to tell the story because it might not get told, but it's wonderful after the fact to be able to tell like a deeper,
for sure,
wider story with these guys.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, you got anything else, man?
We'll be back next week to do this again with a new school. Man.
Next week's gonna be a fun one. You want to say anything about it now? Little teasers?
No.
Okay. All right, man. Thank you for listening to the 19-9 podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. And while you're at it, leave us a rating or review. It helps keep us going. We also have links to all of 19-9's social media so you never miss a release. Until next time.